Hey everyone, Chris Hludzik here. I wanted to do something a little different for this video, and I wanted to actually give you a tour of my home studio. A lot of people do this kind of thing online where they'll, show their recording spaces and whatever, and I figured, yeah, that's a good idea, so I figured I'd get in on that. So my home studio is actually in the basement of my house, and when you come down the steps, there's like a little shelf attached to the ceiling here, and has these 5 little metal men here, and I don't know, it's pretty cool. Kind of sets the tone. And then we come down, in this corner, we have my keyboard. Nothing fancy. It's a Yamaha, it's a 61 key. I guess it's what you would call a beginner's keyboard, but it works well for my purposes. And actually some of the synth sounds on there aren't too bad. This whole corner is actually kind of dedicated to all things piano, really. Right above the piano, have this cool map of Long Island, and of course, one of my favorite piano players, Billy Joel, is from Long Island. And I've been to Long Island a few times. It's really cool. And just thought this was a cool little thing to have for the wall. This wall over here, though, is really inspirational because this is dedicated to my good friend and collaborator, Brian Brophy, and his project, An Autumn Sunrise, and his debut album called When Words Speak Louder Than Actions. This was actually the poster for his CD release show when the album came out, and I played that show with him. And there's the album right there. And it was a project I was very proud to be a part of. I co-produced that and assistant mixed it with him. And it's a great, great album. So that's kind of my piano corner. Now, in various videos I've done, you've seen various corners of this room, but you've never seen the whole room. So this is the first time you're actually getting to see the entire room. So here we have a poster of a local group that was called Jugdish, which features my good friends Joe Igleski and Lenny Mecca, who have played on my albums. Great guys. They're actually going to be celebrating this year the 25th anniversary of their album, Knowledge is Good. And pretty excited about that. But kick-ass guys, kick-ass band. And over here, you have a poster for Butch Walker's album, Letters. It was his second album. And it's just an amazing, amazing album. Great production, great songwriting. Just a really, really killer album. And I kind of like keeping stuff like this down here because, again, like I said about, that piano corner over there, it's kind of inspirational. And it kind of helps get the juices flowing. When you're working on a song and you're feeling like, oh man, I'm not getting it, and you look at you look at one of these posters or one of these pictures, and kind of gives you that little jolt that you need. This is, of course, Billy Joel, and it's just kind of a little, kind of a commemorative thing, listing some of his albums and stuff. Of course, this is kind of out of date now because he's since gone on to release some more live albums and stuff, but all of his core albums are on there, and it's pretty cool. This is a piece that I'm really, really happy to have in my collection, I guess you can call it. This is 2 pictures One of the Nicholson Bridge, which the real name is the Tunkhannock Creek Viaduct, up in Nicholson, Pennsylvania, as it's under construction. And this bottom picture here is actually the people who worked on the bridge. And I thought this was just such a cool picture. I picked these up years ago at an antique shop. I guess they somehow got the negatives, the original negatives to these pictures, and they did reprints of them, and they were selling them. And I thought this was so cool, I had to have it. They actually had another picture which featured a funeral scene of some of the people who died while working on the bridge. And it showed, a bunch of the workers, standing around in suits with, the bodies of the workers who died in the coffins, opened up. And I didn't buy it because I thought, that's kind of creepy. But in a way, I kind of wish I did buy it, because it would have kind of made a cool kind of triptych, with these other pictures here, because, it shows kind of the people responsible, then the bridge, and then that last picture would have showed, kind of the aftermath for some of the people, unfortunately. But for those of you who don't know why I'm rambling on about the Nicholson Bridge, is because I wrote a song about it called The Nicholson Bridge, Bigger Than Us All. And it was a really big source of inspiration for me. Growing up in northeastern Pennsylvania, I always wanted to write a song about the bridge. And I did. So, yeah. Let me just get over here for a second. This one's nothing really special, but, maybe kind of a little cliched, but it's true. Where words fail, music speaks. And I really do believe that. And so now on to something from my earlier days. This is the first album by The Latter Day, which is called As We Speak. And we went under the name The Latter Day Saints when we first started out, because my dumbass forgot that, oh yeah, Latter Day Saints, those are the Mormons, but the name had a much deeper meaning. But I completely forgot about the whole Mormon connection, so then we just called ourselves The Latter Day. But this album was important for me because it was the first release that I did that featured my own compositions on it. So I was really, really proud of that. And to this day, Brian and I, are still proud of this. Brian Brophy, who I just talked about a couple minutes ago with his project Sunrise. This was our side project together, The Latter Day. And we still talk about how this was one of the best things that we ever did. And we're still very, very proud of it. Over here, I have a poster of the Ben Folds 5. Great group, love Ben Folds. In the middle here, this is a pretty cool little piece of memorabilia. About 5 years ago, I went to see the Lords of 52nd Street, who, if you don't know who they are, that was Billy Joel's backing band from the 70s and 80s. And they played an incredible show. And after the show, I got to meet the guys, and I got a couple set lists, and I got a set of Liberty DeVito's Broken Drumsticks. And it was a pretty sweet show. This is something that might surprise some people, but I'm actually a big jazz fan. And this is one of my absolute favorite jazz albums. It's an album on Blue Note Records called Cool Struttin' by a pianist named Sonny Clark. And he had a very short but fruitful career. He never quite scaled the heights of some of his contemporaries, but, Cool Struttin' is a stone cold classic, hard bop jazz album, and of course the, Blue Note artwork for their album covers back then was just so cool. Now this picture is really special. And I'm really sorry about the glare, but if I don't have the lights on in here, then everything's just gonna be really dark and you're not gonna see anything, so you kind of have to deal with the glare. But this is me when I was 20 years old, and the man standing next to me is Jerry Hludzik, no relation to me. He was a musician from northeastern Pennsylvania. Of course, he was in the bands The Boys and Dakota. And, you know, they had several, you know, regional and national hits. And Jerry was a really nice guy. And Jerry passed away about 3 years ago. And he was unique. He was a unique guy. He was always interesting to be in the studio with because he was a perfectionist, and he would kind of drive you crazy sometimes. But then when you heard the end result, it was always great. So it was always worth it. And that's a really cool picture. And I believe that was only the second or third time I was in the studio and I got to meet Jerry Hludzik. So that was pretty cool. Over here, we have, this is my second solo album called Dissonance Meets Harmony. And to this day, I still feel it's one of the better things that I've done. And just for whatever reason, when it came out, it just didn't really get the attention that I thought maybe it should have. And that was due to, you know, several reasons, but I think one of the reasons was I originally wanted to release this album a year earlier than I did, but due to some unforeseen circumstances, that didn't happen. Now, I don't know if it would have made a difference if it came out in 2011 instead of 2012. Maybe it would have, maybe it wouldn't have. I don't know. But the album came out awesome, and I'm very proud of it to this day. And over here is the time with that. This is the poster for the album release shows for Dissonance Meets Harmony, which I did in November of 2012. And I actually did 2 shows. I did an acoustic show and I did an electric show. And to this day, the acoustic show is one of my favorite shows that I've ever done. And on these shows, Brian Brophy backed me on drums and percussion. And my other good friend and sometimes collaborator, Adam Kime, backed me on bass. And just a really cool time, really fun stuff. This, and of course the light is right there. Let's see if I can block it with my hand. But anyway, this is my certificate of achievement for completing the recording workshop course at SI Studios. You know, I have long been associated with SI Studios. My second band recorded our only album there. And of course, even before that, I was listening to albums that were coming out of Sound Investments. So, a lot of history with that place. And then when I found out that they were offering a recording course, I figured this is what I need to do if I want my recordings to sound better, because my recordings didn't sound that great at that time. And I figured, well, if I want to learn how to do it right, this is probably the place to go. And I ended up going there and taking the course, and, you know, I passed the course. I recorded one of my friend's bands for my final project and passed, I guess. And Tom and Wiggy, I guess, liked having me around the studio enough that they asked me if I'd want to stay on as an assistant engineer, which I did. And some of the most fun times of my not only my musical career but my life. And I learned a lot at the studio. I learned a lot about what not to do in a recording situation. That's sometimes just as important as learning what to do. So, yeah. But again, another proud, cool moment. So I guess I will show you kind of the heart of my audio system here. And a lot of people might think, oh, it's not much. And really, I guess it's not, but the monitor speakers are quite impressive. And actually, they were originally in Sound Investments for many years. These are actually AMR phase reference monitors, which were actually made by Peavey. And these never got quite the love that some other monitor speakers like the Yamaha NS10s got, but I think these are way better. They sound really, really good. They have the switch on them, so you can listen to stuff in reference mode, which is basically, you know, flat EQ or equalized. And it's good for kind of switching back and forth when you want to check your mixes and see if there's maybe a little too much bass or something, or too much treble, and you can kind of make adjustments if you need to. And just some of my components here. Well, my main stereo is a Yamaha stereo. And again, nothing fancy, but the reason that I use this is because these speakers are 4 ohm speakers as opposed to 8 ohm speakers, like a lot of speakers are. And so this gives them the, you know, correct amount of power. And then I have a Philips standalone CD burner, which CD burner really doesn't work that great in it anymore, but I hang on to it just in case, because you never know. And then I have an MCS, which is basically a JCPenney's rebranding of a Technics cassette deck. And it's actually an awesome sounding deck. This was my father's from the 80s, and it still plays great and sounds great. And actually the backstory on this is, you know, when I was a kid and I was really getting into music, and specifically when I was kind of starting to, you know, fool around with like recording and stuff, this was one of the first things that I really kind of learned on, because this had, you know, the adjustable meters for the left and right channels, and, you know, different noise reduction and tape types and stuff like that. So I learned a lot on this little cassette recorder about recording. So it's kind of a pivotal part of my getting into audio, I suppose. And over here we have a Technics SLQ300 automatic turntable. Picked this up at a yard sale, God, years ago. I think I only paid like $10 for it. And, you know, nice little turntable. And yes, in case anyone's wondering, that is my dresser that everything is on. But honestly, the reason I use that is because it's the perfect size to fit these speakers and my components on. Over here, I got a couple microphones out because I've been down here recording, working on some stuff. This is the MXL 990 large diaphragm condenser microphone. This was one of those cheapy microphones out of Musician's Friend. And honestly, it's one of the best microphones I've ever used. I've had PV condenser mics and Audio-Technica condenser mics that I've used, and I don't think they sounded as good as this. This just has a really, really good sound to it, and it literally works great for everything. I've recorded drums with this. I've recorded acoustic guitars, acoustic basses, you know, voice, you know, woodwind instruments, you know, you name it. I've thrown them at this mic, and it's reproduced them very, very well. So, really good mic. Now over here is my mixing board, which I put my microphones through. And this is the PV20 USB. And it's called that because there's a USB out on it that you can hook up to a computer. Unfortunately, it doesn't work anymore because this board is like 15 or 16 years old, and you know, I don't even think drivers exist for this anymore to be able to be used on a computer. But what I do is I just go from the analog out into the microphone in on the back of my computer, and that's how I take the audio in. And honestly, that works better. And speaking of my computer, this is my computer. I couldn't tell you any of the specs. I know it's an i5 processor, and I forget how many gigs of RAM, but does the job, gets it done. I use Audacity to record, and again, does the job, gets it done, and has a Blu-ray drive on it. I also have another DVD writer there, just kind of as a backup. This is my Ibanez GAX70, which was actually the first electric guitar I bought, but not this specific one. The one that I bought, it's a funny story. I was playing it in the basement of my parents' house, and for whatever reason, I was wearing the strap, and I got up, and I wasn't holding on to the guitar, and the weight of the guitar kind of, made the guitar drop off of my lap when I was standing up, and one of the strap buttons was loose, and it came right out when it fell, and it just fell to the floor. And I didn't break the guitar, but I smashed in the volume and tone knobs, and it just looked horrible. And I couldn't even look at it anymore, and I traded it in. But then years later, I found myself missing it because I really like this guitar because it's got double humbuckers. It's a really mean sounding guitar, and but the neck on this thing is it's just so flat and just so playable. I mean, you could strangle this neck. It's really easy to play. And I use this one mostly for solos. I've done some rhythm stuff on this, but and I'm currently, the reason I have it out right now is because I'm recording a solo. And here's my amp, which is a Crate GFX 212. It has a digital signal processor in it. It's a loud amp. And again, does the job. I just move some stuff out of the way here, and then I'll show you what's behind door number 1. And this is just my closet here that has some random stuff in it. I have some of my guitars in their cases back there. I have my my Squier P bass. I have my Epiphone Granada, hollow body electric guitar, and in that PV case, that's where I keep my Ibanez and my Squier Strat. And then here is where I keep my Montana acoustic, which you've seen me play if you've watched my live streams, or if you've come out and seen me play live. And then there's the box for my PV USB 20. And below that is my Tascam 8-track reel-to-reel, which I recorded my first solo album on, and various other things over the years. Some of the Latter Days' first album was also recorded on that. And then back here, just some various stuff, microphones, jewel cases for CDs, some books, just various other stuff. There's my PA system back there. I don't really have a mic closet like a lot of studios have. That's kind of my mic closet, really. But like I said, for recordings, I basically use I'll use this MXL 990 for, the acoustic type instruments and vocals. And I will, of course, use the trusty Shure SM57 for the guitars. And bass, I usually record direct. I have a Digitech BP200 bass effects processor, which I really don't use any of the effects on it. I use the compressor on it because I like it. And actually, when I used to record in the early days to the Tascam reel-to-reel, I would actually put my vocals through the compressor on that effects processor, and they always ended up sounding really, really great. So, kind of a pretty multi-use effects processor. But I really don't put a lot of effects on my stuff. Maybe a tiny bit of reverb, mostly just compression. And I don't compress everything. I usually just compress like the vocals, the bass, and the drums. That's really about it. I don't compress guitars. I don't even compress things like backing vocals or any other kind of auxiliary instruments, because when you put the stuff through mastering, it's already getting compressed, and you're just going to compress it more, and it's going to sound worse. So that's a word of advice, kids. Be careful when you're compressing in a mix, because it's going to get further compressed in the master, and you got to ask yourself if you could be able to live with that. But yeah, I just figured I would do this video just to kind of show everybody my space down here and what I do. Like I said, if anybody's watched my YouTube videos or watched my Facebook videos, you've seen me in pretty much every corner of this room, but you've never seen the whole room, all together and had some of the things on the wall explained before. So yeah, I just figured this would be a cool thing to do. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep it posted to my Facebook page, facebook.com/chris.hludzik.96, or just, search Chris Hludzik on Facebook. I should pop up. You could also go to chrishludzik.com, and that has the links to all my websites on there. I'm also on Instagram @ChrisLhudzikMusic. And thank you guys so much for watching and checking out my studio. Have a good one.